Today we're going to focus on the muscles of the head and neck, starting from the anterior side and moving around to the posterior side. So hopefully you can keep up. So we'll begin at the superior portion of the head. This muscle over here is known as the epicranius frontal belly, or sometimes known as the frontalis. The epicranius frontal belly or frontalis. So as we move to the lateral side, we will find the temporalis muscle, the temporalis. Moving posteriorly, you will find the epicranius occipital belly, or sometimes known as the occipitalis, the occipital belly or occipitalis. Okay, moving back towards the anterior side, we'll go inferior and we'll find the muscle around the eye known as the orbicularis oculi. The orbicularis oculi is this muscle that orbits around the eye, the eyeball. So this would be also the orbicularis oculi. Below it, there's another circular muscle that has a similar name. It's known as the orbicularis oris. Orbicularis oris. It surrounds the oral cavity, thus the name. Laterally, we will find the masseter, the large muscle that allows you to chew, the masseter. The lateral posterior side, just behind the ear, we find this muscle called the sternocleidomastoid because it connects to the mastoid process of the occipital bone and to the clavicle and the sternum. So the sternocleidomastoid. So in the neck area, on the anterior side, we also find several muscles, but we want to point out the sternohyoid, which is this muscle that connects to the hyoid bone and the sternum on the back side of it. So the sternohyoid right there. So below the mandible, the chin, you have two muscles on each side, the digastric and the mylohyoid. The flatter one is the mylohyoid, the thinner one is the digastric. Now we want to point to the muscles of the posterior torso and maybe a few muscles that are on the shoulder to accompany them. Starting on the right side of this model, we see muscles are more superficial. On the left side, the muscles have been removed, the superficial muscles have been removed. So the muscles that cover these are the trapezius, which extends from the inferior portion of the head through the spinous process of the scapula, all the way down to thoracic vertebrae number 12. That's the trapezius. This whole muscle, trapezius. To the side of it, we see the deltoid, the large muscle of the shoulder, that also attaches to the spinal process or the spine of the scapula. And then to the humerus, and obviously lifts the forearm. The arm, I'm sorry. Then below the trapezius, we have this large sheet-like muscle that inserts itself under the armpit. That's called the latissimus dorsi. All of this muscle is the latissimus dorsi. Okay, latissimus dorsi. Just on the lower portion, we have the gluteus maximus, and then just lateral to it and slightly superior is the gluteus medius. Gluteus medius. On the left side of the model, we have the deeper muscles that include the levator scapula, the two rhomboids, the minor and major rhomboids, the supraspinatus, that is just above the spinous process of the shoulder blade of the scapula, the supraspinatus, the infraspinatus, which borders right there, comes around, and it covers the inferior portion of the scapula. Just to the side of it, we have the teres minor, which is bordering with the infraspinatus, right there, and the teres major, which has an extension on the anterior side of the humerus. So teres minor, teres major. And then below, we have the serratus anterior muscles that are connected to the ribs. The serratus anterior muscles. Okay, now we want to focus on the muscles of the torso, but the anterior side, the front side. And so we'll start on the right. We have the more superficial muscles that on the left side have been removed to reveal the deeper muscles. So we pointed out the deltoid when speaking of the posterior because it wraps around to the anterior portion, and so that's the deltoid. The very large muscle of the chest that covers most of the upper thorax is the pectoralis major. So this whole muscle is the pectoralis major. Below it, we can see the external oblique. The external oblique. And notice the fibers moving from the outside obliquely to the midline. Okay. On the left side, we see the deeper muscle. So the pectoralis major has been removed to reveal the pectoralis minor. Also, below, we can see the rectus abdominis, the famous muscle that is sometimes called the six-pack, although it's really an eight-pack. But it is made up of these bellies of muscles that are straight up and down from the rib cage to the groin, the rectus abdominis. Since the external oblique has been removed, it reveals the internal oblique, and notice the fibers running from the midline obliquely to the lateral side in opposition to the external oblique. So this is the internal oblique. Okay. To observe the transversus abdominis, you need to remove the model's front cover and turn it over, and then you can see the transversus abdominis, which is the third layer of the abdominal wall that is most interior to the body. So from the outside in, the abdominal wall is going to be made up of the external oblique, the internal oblique, and then here you can see, but only if you look at it from the inside, the transversus abdominis. Okay.